Bases dropped on a special PM edition of Soccer Down here. Why are we back again? Atlanta United has a manager. That's why. Gabriel Heinze is the new manager of Atlanta United. Not a surprise on who it is. Maybe a little bit of a surprise on when it was announced. We did not expect this morning. Thought that it would be next week or maybe even after the first of the year. But it was announced all afternoon. A lot of talk about it all over the country, a lot of talk about it all over Atlanta, a lot of talk about it all over the world, to be perfectly honest. So this is going to be as much of a Q&A as y'all want it to be, basically. We've talked a good bit about Gabriel Heinze. We'll dig as deep as you want to into things. Break out the whiteboard, can talk about whatever you want to on it. It's a big move. It's a bold move. It's a different move. I think a lot of people have wanted to put this into, it's just like Tata. It's a return to the Tata Martino style. It's not. He's not a Tata Martino clone. He's not. He's unique. He's close to Bielsa, but he's not Bielsa. He is very unique, and this is I think, a very bold, aggressive move. I love the move. I love the upside of the move. I love the excitement of the move. But there's going to be some questions about it as you go, as you would with any manager. No, this is nothing new. But you're talking about somebody who is on the rise. You're talking about somebody who could be one of the great managers of this generation, but is still developing. So it's going to be a fun conversation to go while Gabriel Heinze is here in Atlanta. For those of you who don't know, I'm Jason Longshore. Jarrett Smith will be joining in as we go. Maybe we'll get Nick Alifi on as well. John is busy with high school football, so he will be back for the Power Hour tomorrow to get his thoughts. Ropes was listening to the earlier show, and we didn't know. This morning when Mike Conti was on with us, we did not know that this was going to happen. It's actually kind of funny. I had a quick meeting this morning nearby, socially distanced with masks on, actually about our brewery tour next year. And we're going to have a lot of Thursday night soccer down here shows at breweries all over the metro area and honestly all over the state. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's get rid of this stupid COVID. So I was on my way back from that, and Gwen wanted to go outside, my dog. So I got her on her harness, and we're walking, and I get a text from Mike saying, is 2 p.m. okay? And I'm like, what? 2 p.m. what? And he's like, stoppage time. And I'm like, huh? And after he said 2 p.m., I'm like, let me check Twitter real quick. And then I see that it had just been posted. I did not see the lead up to where the post, I guess, was coming or whatever. I don't know what happened previously, but when Mike sent me the text and I checked Twitter, it had just been posted that the hire was done. So that was how I found out as I was walking Gwen in the yard, which was good times. So we'll get into how everything went down. We'll get into all of it. So lots of stuff to get into. Thanks for watching Stoppage Time, Phoenix. Really appreciate it. That was fun to put together. I thought we dug into a couple different things that we maybe hadn't covered as much talking about this. Rope says, I'd be interested to see the physical issues that the players will have with the tactics and playing in the MLS schedule. And that's a really good point. And it's something that has come up about Marcelo Bielsa as well. Look, Bielsa's going to be a touchstone here a lot because of what we've seen from Bielsa for decades, and he is the biggest influence on the way that Gabriel Heinze sees the game. So you're going to get a lot of that. But one of the narratives about Bielsa, up until he won the championship last year with Leeds, was his 2 titles he won in Argentina were short tournaments. Argentina's known for short tournaments. The seasons that Heinze had with Vélez, where he finished 6th and he finished 3rd, were shorter tournaments. They were kind of in between the two. This past season was 23 matches. The year before was 25. His team's finished well in those, though, and I think that's a really important thing. But 34 games with the amount of travel plus CONCACAF plus Open Cup plus playoffs at the end of it, that's going to be a challenge. It's going to be different, and I think it's going to take a little getting used to, and that's okay too. That's completely okay as well. Tesco says, brain exploded when you said Almendra has been compared to Riquelme. Yeah, some have. And look, that's not done by any stretch. Agustin Almendra has been linked to Atlanta United. Felipe Cardenas of The Athletic had that first. That has been mentioned in Argentine media following up on The Athletic report. I haven't seen any updates on it just yet. Almendra has been out of Boca's squad for quite a while, actually. Didn't want to return after the pandemic. Let's go backwards. So he played under Schelotto. He played under Gustavo Alfaro. Regular, played big games. When Russo came in, who's the current manager, at the beginning of the calendar year, they didn't click. They didn't click at all. And Almendra was linked. He had been linked to moves before. He had been linked to a big money move to Napoli at one point. He wanted to go, and he told Riquelme, who's a board member at Boca, that he wanted to go. He nearly went to Miami to the point that Jorge Mas said in an interview that it's imminent, I think was the word that he used. Which ultimately, of course, did not happen. He was linked to the LA Galaxy. I believe a report came out in Argentina on the day that everything shut down in this country with the coronavirus. So he's been linked to moves quite a bit, and it didn't happen. And reportedly, that led to even more of a fracture with the club. In July, Nico Cantor reported that Almendra was linked not just with Miami, but clubs in New York and Los Angeles. Don't know if it was, I would assume, NYC and not Red Bulls, although you never know. Galaxy were probably still into it at that point. Schelotto was there. He had managed him. Makes a lot of sense. Also linked to Serie A clubs. In August, the Galaxy were mentioned again, right around the time the restart happened. Well, when the team started to train again in August, he did not want to return. He was told he had to return. He's under contract. He did come back for the first round of COVID testing. He tested positive. He was in isolation for most of August after testing positive. He didn't want to go back to training. He went. He asked for personal leave. He left for a while, and then he hasn't come back until today. And that's a long time. There's been a total breakdown with the relationship with the club. That has to get fixed one way or another, or he has to get sold. He is a valuable asset to Boca Juniors to the point that in the past he had been linked to a $29 million deal at Napoli. That was ahead of the U20 World Cup, where Almendra was a teammate of Ezequiel Barco. That ultimately did not happen, obviously. Now, the transfer fee in February for Miami was expected to be around $10 million. Don't know if it's gone down more. Don't know what that would look like. But Felipe's reporting was that Almendra was a target that Gabriel Heinze wanted to bring to Atlanta. He would fit what Gabriel Heinze wants out of the sixth position, the defensive midfield position. And that's what Ryan Patrick Lee asks. How do you think Heinze will utilize the six, and who would be a realistic fit? He's done it in some different ways. Two players who played a lot in that position for him at Vélez are two players you might know. Gaston Jimenez, who's with Chicago now, and Fernando Gago, who might be part of Heinze's coaching staff. You want out of that position in the way he plays, you want somebody who can play in the back line, because at times you'll go to three center backs, and you'd like for that third one, when you start in that position, to be somebody who can play in the midfield. It gives you flexibility. You also want somebody who can drop in between the two center backs in the build-up phase. So you need somebody strong on the ball. You need somebody who is not just a short passer. You need somebody with a range of passing. I think with the players you have here, Mateos Rossetto could actually be a really interesting possibility in that role. He has played in a deep-lying role previously in his career at Paranaense in Brazil. He could fit. We saw him just a little bit under Stephen Glass in that kind of role. He's got the range of passing. He's probably got the best range of passing of Rossetto, Hindman, Remedi, and Adams. Although Adams really came on strong at the end of the season, and Adams gives you a lot of that ground to be covered, which you'd like out of your other midfielders. You don't know if you necessarily want it out of the six. I think it's going to be more of a passer. I mean, Almendra, if you can get him and he can get back to form, totally makes a lot of sense. There's other guys you could look for in those kinds of scenarios as well, but think of somebody who is strong on the ball. So, I mean, I know he's not a fan favorite around here, but somebody like a Michael Bradley, somebody like a Will Trapp, you want somebody who is a passer. That's going to be the number one component you're looking for, and range of passing. And that's something that would let Trapp down a little bit. But you're looking for that long diagonal. The big switch is a big part of the way this team will play. The big switch to the opposite side, because Heinze will want his attacking unit to stay as wide as possible to open the field up for runs through, but also to have the big switch beyond. Burned, yeah, good point. This morning's podcast is proof that you guys don't get advance info on hirings or signings. No, we don't. Every once in a while we will, if something comes up and you know, if somebody's going to be on the radio station, or you're trying to, you know, line it up for them to be on the radio station or whatever, we'll get it. Not always. And that's fine by me, because I'm doing a show every day. I don't want it because I don't like keeping secrets. I don't want a whole bunch of inside information. We're here to talk about what happens. So I'm not trying to break news. I don't need scoops. You know, it's all good. But yeah, this morning, I mean, that's how it goes. That's what it is. You know, we had a pretty good feeling it was coming soon. I thought maybe sooner than Mike did, but we didn't know. You know, we didn't know. Let's see what else we got. Tesco with a good point. This is something that I think is an important element of this. Tesco says, I'm most excited that he chose us. I know he puts a ton of research into his projects, and it's a very important element of this. And I think at times, you know, it gets left, you know, off to the side, but this is something that Bielsa's known for. This is something that Tata Martino's known for. They look at everything. So my guess is when the first message or call or email or, you know, word from the agent that Atlanta was interested, I'm going to guess one of the first things that Gabriel Heinze did was watch games. And he got a sense for the team. Probably one of the first things he did was he called Tata Martino, who he played for, and asked him questions. Then they had a long, you know, meeting in Buenos Aires, and it was something that stood out to me about Darren's interview with Dukes and Willie P today on 92.9. Mike was out, and it was that it felt like he was interviewing them as much as they were interviewing him. That's how he works. Because for him, it's life, it's everything, and he wants to be able to trust the people that he's going to work with. He feels like he can trust the people he's going to work with. That's really, really important. And I think for some of the criticisms of the front office, that doesn't happen unless he has a high opinion of the front office. So, you know, Carlos Bocanegra and Gabriel Heinze played around the same time. They played in the 06 and the 2010 World Cups at the same time. I think they might have played against one another at some point with national teams. I have to go back and look at some lineups and see. But they were in the same circles. You know, with Bocanegra's time in England, with his time in France, I wonder if they overlapped. I think they actually might have. I'll have to go back and look. But they were in the same circles. So that's going to lead to some respect straight away. I think Tata must have given a strong recommendation for this to be continuing. So that goes a long way. I feel like it should give people, I think, a little more of a warm feeling towards the front office and the club, because Heinze had choices. He turned down Paul Maris. He said no. That's the way it was reported. Not that they passed on him and they moved on. It was that he turned the project down. He did not turn down Atlanta United. That's a very cool selling point. The Say Anything video was amazing. I totally agree, everybody. Rope said the interview with Darren was really good. Shiva wants to recap it. I'll tell you what you guys can do is when we're done, you can go to radio.com. You can go to the 99 or 92.9 page on radio.com, and you can rewind, because it holds everything for 24 hours. So you can rewind to 3 o'clock, and it was right at the top of the hour at 3 o'clock was the interview. It's about 10, 12 minutes. He just basically walked through the process, walked through some of the positive points about him. It was a good interview, and go check that out at radio.com. Highly recommended. Programming update for Monday. We'll be on an hour earlier than normal. We'll be from 8 to 10 on Monday morning, because Gabriel Heinze's first press conference will be at 10 o'clock. It will be aired live on 92.9, and Mike and I will be on for stoppage time, taking you to 11 o'clock after the press conference is done. So it might be a short stoppage time, but just to recap everything. So Monday morning, we'll be on an hour early. The press conference is at 10. You can listen to it at 92.9. You can listen to it on the radio.com app. And then Mike and I will be on the 92.9 The Game Facebook page to recap everything from that. It's going to be busy. Badger, I watched some YouTube compilations of Heinze's play. I can see how Escobar tries to pattern his game after El Gringo. Absolutely. For anybody who came through Newell's who played defense, Heinze is going to be a touchstone for you. He's going to be a very important player for you to try to emulate. And the fact that Franco did have a little bit of time playing with him is very key here. It's very, very key. So I also think the way that Heinze manages, you'll see the best out of Franco Escobar. He's an immediate person that Gabriel will trust, and that's a big element here. He's an immediate player that will understand the methodology. You hear this a lot in American football when you see coordinators move, where it's about learning a new language, right, with the playbook, because different coaches have their own things. There's a bit of that with the way that Heinze and Bielsa and Tata and all of that goes. So there's a little bit of that. The way they train, some of the language will be very similar. So Escobar will play a very important role in, I think, getting somebody like Meza and Robinson up to speed. I mean, Robinson was here for Tata Martino's training sessions, which were intense. I think Gabriel Heinze's are going to be at a different level. So having somebody like Escobar in the mix will definitely help in a big way. Winter says, best part of this, half joking, is that he has a nickname. El Tata, El Gringo. It's like it should be. The nickname comes because he kind of looks like a gringo. His father's German, his mother's Italian. He was born in Argentina. He has those features about him. So, that European heritage, looking like a gringo, they call him El Gringo, and it's just stuck. Tesco says, do you think he returned to training with a transfer in mind, talking about Almendra, maybe in the next 2 months, wink, wink? It's possible. It's also because Boca Juniors was getting to the point where they were threatening legal action. So that probably had a big hand in it, too. I don't know if they actually would have gone through with it again. They kind of understand the situation here, and it's time to sell, and they need to get the best they can for him. The only problem for Boca at the moment is they could really use him. I don't know where he is fitness-wise. I don't know if they're going to really try to throw him in, but they could use him at the moment. They've got some injuries. They've had some players leave, and they're in a tough spot in the Libertadores right now. They're a goal down to Racing going into the second leg, and if they get knocked out of the Libertadores by Racing, Russo's role could be in trouble because that's just not acceptable to lose in the quarterfinals to a fellow Argentine club. We'll have to see where that goes. But there's talk that they could use him at the moment. So I'm curious to see if they try to implement him into the squad really quickly or not and just get him back in to make the sale. But, the issue with it's complicated. I don't think the whole story's ever really come out in the Argentine media. I mean, he has not played a match since November of 2019. So if the transfer does happen, one, you should get a really good deal on a very talented player who has been very highly thought of, but he's going to be coming off of a year of inactivity, and that's going to be a bit of a struggle. Winter says, I wonder if he might have also reached out to Franco to get an additional perspective. Absolutely could have. Would not be a surprise at all. That's a good call. Tesco, I agree. Tata will be a big ambassador for MLS in South America, in Argentina specifically. Anybody through the Newell system, Tata is a big-time ambassador to have in your network. That's another feather in the cap for Atlanta United, to have somebody like that speaking on your behalf. Shiva says... about the interview thing, Darren said the same thing about FDB, that FDB interviewed them. Again, and I know it's easy to use old Frank as a punching bag, which I think is unfair to Frank. That's what good managers will do, especially in the case of coming to MLS and coming to Atlanta United, who's a new club in the grand scheme of things. They're going to want to know where they're working. They're going to want to know who they're working with. They're going to want to know these things. They are going to want answers. So that's going to continue to happen for a while, and that's fine. I think there's a different level to it with what Tata Martino and Heinze do, where it is that, but they also do their research. And it's not to say that Frank doesn't, but it's something that the Bielcistas are known for. They come in prepared. I mean, I think the famous story with Tata Martino and his dossier basically on the league, it kind of referenced that a little bit with something Darren said today. So, how prepared, how much info did he have, how much had he studied ahead of time, those sorts of things. It's a really good question, and maybe we'll get a little bit more at the media availability on Monday. But trust is a massive thing for these types of managers because of how much they put into it. They don't want that to be in vain. So Frank's also a good manager, and Frank also puts a lot into it. And I don't think Frank feels like he was lied to in any way or anything like that. It just didn't work out. And I think the differences in those three people, if you want to include all the managers, in personality is a big reason why. Frank expected a lot from his players and maybe didn't get what he expected. Tata and I believe Gabriel Heinze will not be expecting as much as instructing what they want. And it's just a different mentality. It's just a different mentality, and it will hopefully be a little bit better fit. Ryan Patrick Lee says the fact that Darren and Carlos went to Argentina to interview Heinze and wound up getting interviewed by Heinze reminds me about the meeting with Bielsa at the beginning of the Leeds doc on Amazon. And absolutely, that is not a bad comparison at all. That is how these things are going to go. It's impressive. I'd love to, at some point, get the full story on how crazy of a process was this in general. You're in the midst of a global pandemic. I don't know what travel restrictions or travel is like right now from the United States to Argentina. I mean, Darren said they had to get permission to do it. I don't know if that's governmental permission. I don't know if that's, what that looks like. I don't know what it took to do it. So I'd love to hear that story. Because as he said today, you do the Zooms and you can talk to people that way, but to make a hire like this, you got to meet face to face. So I don't know if that slowed things down. I don't know how that worked. Darren kind of, alluded to the fact that Gabriel Heinze had other offers as well. And Atlanta wasn't the only team chasing him. The Palmeiras one, for example. As I believe that's Jarrett Smith jumping in.
You know it.
Good times. I actually heard you this time. You didn't sneak in.
Every ninja has an off day.
That's true. It happens occasionally.
Yeah.
What I was saying is I'd love to hear the backstory of how Darren and Carlos got to Argentina in the midst of a global pandemic to sit down with Gabriel Heinze for 48 hours. That's got to be a story in and of itself.
I like to think that it's kind of like they stowed away on crates or something. If you can just picture the idea of Carlos and Darren, which Darren's not a huge guy anyway. Darren could fit in a lot of places, I'm sure. He's not a very huge guy. He was a good athlete. I'm sure he still has some flexibility and some, as I was referred to by one of my favorite professors in college, deceptively athletic. I'm sure Darren is still deceptively athletic. He could probably fit into some small spaces, and you would go, oh, I didn't know he was there. All of a sudden, he pops up in Argentina.
True. Shiva says, anyone greeting Heinze at the airport? I have no idea when he's arriving, if he's arriving. Don't do that. I don't recommend it. I don't know if I don't even know if the media availability, if he's going to be in town. I have no idea. It's a virtual one as far as I know, but I don't know the whole situation here. So don't do that. Just soon enough, things are sounding good with vaccines and such. I think the word is that anybody who wants one will be able to get one by June. So maybe a midsummer celebration of him at the Benz will be in order, and hopefully with a lot of points on the table by then, and that will be an exciting thing. But no, don't do that. Please don't do that. South Georgia United says, what's the earliest he can meet the players? They're on vacation until training camp resumes, and we don't know when that will be exactly because we don't know when the season's going to resume. We don't know when they can start training earlier due to CONCACAF. We don't technically know when the CONCACAF dates are going to be. Welcome to pandemic football. So we'll figure all that out. I would assume that it would be mid-January at the absolute earliest. Could be later.
I just have this image of them doing the entire Champions League in Exploria Stadium again.
I don't hate it. As long as they turn it into a group stage in that way and you get at least 3 games, I'm cool with that.
I would love for CONCACAF Champions League to expand in a sense where you get a group stage and then you work down to a round of 16.
Yeah, they did that and everybody griped about it. Because it's like, we got to go play this game in Trinidad and Tobago on a Wednesday and then come back and play in the league on the weekend. Well, yeah, welcome to the big boy soccer. Come on
That's what they do in Europe all the time.
I know.
In clubs in England, go to Prague, play on a plastic field, get stuff thrown at their bus, dodge flares, then go back and play against Millwall.
I know. It's like, it's so hard, and then these teams aren't very good. We talk all the time about
the fact that your league games will involve playing a game at home in Atlanta, and in less than a week, you got to go play in Vancouver.
Accurate, yes. It's true.
You miss me with all. It's part of it.
Yeah, I want it.
If your argument is that, well, MLS rosters aren't deep enough to do that. Okay, I can see where you're coming from. That's a different debate, though.
Yeah, it is. And you got to play the kids. At this point, the way the level is, you just got to play the kids. You gotta turn to Tyler Wolf's. You got to turn to the Efrain Moraleses. You got to turn to those kids, and you got to play them. I mean, the business is showing you got to do it with this Brian Reynolds rumor and where you want to be. So, okay, if you've got a game against Tauro in Panama on a Wednesday and you're back at it in league play, you got to make a decision. Where are you in the group stage? Have you sealed it? Then Efrain Morales gets trial by fire in Panama, and on the weekend in the league game, then you can play your first choice. That's just how it's got to be.
God, the Caleb Wiley hype train would be amazing.
It'd be great. Caleb Wiley lighting it up in meaningless CONCACAF games in Central America. I'm in.
Caleb Wiley and Will Riley just anchoring a Panama like match day 5 game against I don't know, Herediano again.
That's a little bit tougher one. That's a little bit different conversation. But I thought something that was interesting.
Trial by fire.
Yeah, that's true. As I was driving around a little bit today, I was listening to Counterattack, and Paul Tenorio was on with Brian Dunseth and Tony Miola. It's a good interview. I highly recommend going to check it out. But something they discussed a little bit, haven't really heard it mentioned too much, the whole MLS Next idea and kind of reshaping what reserve teams look like. And he talked about how like some players don't want to sign a USL contract. They want to sign the MLS contract, and they don't like that the USL logo is there. They want the MLS logo there. So I think some of the idea is that whatever this reserve situation would look like, it would be a way for MLS teams to sign more of their academy players to pro deals. I think that's a pretty interesting development if that's how it works, because one, then your investment in developing the players is protected. You don't have a Weston McKennie situation where he can just leave Dallas's academy and you get nothing, except for now solidarity payments. Two, it creates more of a situation with this kind of scenario, and it's something that Frank DeBoer complained about frequently, about being able to have guys who are part of your club. Now you can have them on some kind of a pro contract that is maybe more attractive for some of these players to sign, as opposed to, not signing a USL deal, and then bringing them far more easily, and I hope this is a component of this, into these kinds of games. Even league games. You should be it should be almost like a two-way contract that the NBA has, where Will Riley decides to sign the deal, and this is just a name to use as an example, and it can play in whatever the second team's league is, if it's an MLS Next league, if it's a USL, whatever. But he can also play up to 6 regular season games in MLS until he has to sign an MLS contract. You need something like that for these situations. That's got to be a component of all of this.
It does. I want to see, I guess I want to see how this whole thing looks, and because I am excited about it, but I hope you'll forgive me if I'm kind of, I don't want to say skeptical, but I'm just kind of hesitant because I want to see what it looks like and get beyond the fact of, hey, here's what we want to do. That's great, but MLS sometimes it's not always clear at first. For instance, this young DP rule. The way it's explained versus what it actually is.
I don't even know what this thing is at this point.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Is the way things are explained versus what they actually are can be different in the way that they do this stuff. And that's fine, because what it ends up being isn't necessarily a bad thing. They just do it. Just a trash job of explaining stuff sometimes. And it really does, rattle my chains.
Yeah, it's something that's got to get better. Now, I mean, at least with this U22 initiative situation, it sounds like they're still figuring it out, but I don't get much of the logic that is still being reported by some as, okay, if you have 3 full designated players, you can only have 1 U22, but if you have 2 full designated players, you can have 4 U22s, 4, 6, what? That doesn't add up. I'm a little confused. We'll see what happens. I kind of have a feeling that it might be somewhere in between. I don't know. But we'll figure that out as we go. That has not been finalized yet, according to some reports. So stay tuned. There will be something in place for the upcoming season, I would assume.
Yeah.
Tesco with a question. Why are Heinze's teams so good at defense? Are they really that effective at pressing that the other team doesn't get the ball? It's not so much about them not getting the ball. It's about taking the ball back from them in dangerous spots. That's what you're looking for here. So Heinze's numbers, his Argentinos Juniors team, which won the second division, which was expected to be a good second division team. Let's be real. It's like when a team goes into the second division that has more talent than the teams that have been there for a minute. They gave up 24 goals in 44 matches. His half season at Vélez, when he took over in midway through, his teams gave up 19 goals in 15 matches. first full season with Velez, 25 goals conceded in 25 matches. This past season, where they finished third, 14 goals conceded in 23 matches. That's really impressive. It's intense pressure, and it makes it's twofold because of where it is and what it is. The where, this is going to be the biggest difference between Frank de Boer's teams with Atlanta United. The defending will not be taking place from a deeper position. It'll be taking place higher up the pitch. So you're not letting the opposition get settled once they recover the ball. So you're attacking, you turn it over. It's not drop and stay organized. It is go fight like dogs to win it back. Like it is. Go ahead.
It is. As I always enjoyed. One of my favorite quotes is from Jock Stein of the best place to defend is in your opponent's penalty area. So.
Yep. And you got to do it effectively if you're going to do that, because
of course,
the
you
trade-off.
Can't be reckless about it, because that's a good way to get just eviscerated.
You can't do it halfway, and that's where I think when you see teams that play in this way, when they get caught, somebody let up, and a ball can be sent over the top, and you can get caught because you're going to play a high line. If you're going to play a high line and you're going to try to play in the other team's half, you can't let them play. Because if you do, they're going to take advantage of that high line. So that's an element to it. The biggest thing is you're just trying to play in the other team's half. You're going back to a little bit of the mentality that we saw with Tata Martino in terms of verticalidad, playing very vertical and getting into their half as quick as possible, but not playing. And I think this is the very important distinction, because people just throw the word press around like they're all the same. This is not the way the Red Bulls play. Look at the Red Bulls' possession numbers versus San Jose's possession numbers. Because San Jose is a decent touchstone here, too. Almeida has a lot of these tendencies. You're talking like 60% versus 40%. And yes, you're going to be aggressive with the counter press. Yes, you want to get the ball back quickly. Yes, you're going to get into the other team's half quickly. But then you're going to cycle possession. You're going to work side to side. You're going to come back to the halfway line. You're going to work to create good opportunities. But you want to play in their half and do that. You don't want a lot of slow build-up, but you're fine with possession over there in their half. It's it's an idea of, and one of the ways I've heard it described is you lose the ball, you want the team to get faster. You want them to accelerate then. And then when you get the ball, you want to slow down. You want to relax a little bit once you get the ball back. But when you don't have it, accelerate. Get faster to get it back. And that's a tough balance to strike. But when you do, it's really hard to play against that.
And it's the thing as well for me is to always remember with Almeida's teams is what I enjoy about them when they're clicking. And I love my Quakes, but they haven't been clicking. It's more than just that man marking press with like basically somebody, I guess if you want to call it playing free safety for lack of a better word, the way he man marks. It's kind of like you kind of have like a free like the one man free on the back. But it's more than just that man-to-man press up and down the field. Like when they get the ball, like when Red Bulls were on their peak in like 2018, when they got the ball, the turnover, it's kind of like, hey, we're just going to get it forward and get it to the feet of people who can cause problems. But as you saw in like MLS Eastern Conference Finals, when Atlanta forced Red Bulls to play with the ball, it wasn't their strength. San Jose, and more specifically, San Jose a couple times with Almeida, but more specifically, some of Almeida's better teams, when you see them press like dogs, if you want to give them the ball, they'll break you down. It's not that they don't know how to play with the ball, and it is striking that balance.
Yeah, it's a really important distinction, because I think sometimes, and we've talked about it with the Red Bulls a lot, like they don't want a whole bunch of passes anywhere in the field. They just don't want the ball on their feet a lot, because the pressing side of it is how they create things. That's not what Gabriel Heinze wants. That's not what Bielsa's teams want. That's not what Almeida's teams want. They will create chances through their pressure. They will create quick strike opportunities, but they also want to be able to play. The Red Bulls are a team that when they do recover it, it is immediately direct to goal. Whereas with Atlanta, expect when you recover it, if the direct movement to goal is not on, cycle. Go left to right, right to left. Look for the open man. Always look for the open man. Try to create the channels to run through. Try to create players coming into those half spaces between the wide forwards and the number 9. You're going to be looking for those consistently. The end all with a question, Jarrett, and you get it first. What impact could be expected of Jackson Conway next season?
I'm afraid to put expectations on Jackson Conway. I don't know if that's me being scared and being, unfair to him in the wrong direction, whereas I do worry that people are going to be unfair on their expectations for him as far as what he can do. But I expect him to compete for that second spot again. You're not gonna no one's gonna take that spot from Joseph.
No,
at this point. So don't get a wild hair or anything. But I'm excited to see what he can be as a second striker, a guy who's probably going to go down, spend some time with the twos just to stay sharp and get time, depending on how the schedule breaks. I would like him to do that because I want him to keep getting games. It's the same thing with that we've talked about in the green room with George Campbell. George Campbell has to get games this year. I expect him to compete and push a guy like an Adam John for that second striker spot. And when he gets his chances on the field to show not only that he can play up top, but show what we've seen from him a little bit is the ability to play out wide and be flexible and just get on the field. Be a guy who can, wherever you put him up top, out on the side, however you need him to play, he can do that. And I think he's gotten to the point and continues to get to the point as he matures that he becomes a danger of just get him on the field and then let him go, and he will cause problems.
Tesco says it seems like his front 6 press hard and his back 4 clean up. I think it's more than that. I don't think it's so much as a 6 and a 4. It's pretty much everybody presses hard with one guy to clean up. He wants one person to be free defensively to clean it up. And it's nice to have somebody like Miles Robinson, who I think is a perfect fit for that kind of positioning because of how much range he has. But that means every
athletic physical freak who's starting to read the game really well as he develops, and who's also developing something of a mean streak. Thank God.
Gabriel Heinze will bring that mean streak out of him, that's for sure.
Oh, Gabriel Heinze getting I am still ecstatic of the idea of Gabriel Heinze getting his hands on George Campbell.
Yeah.
I don't know. You might have to rein that in before it's all said and done.
Okay, I'm going to break out the whiteboard for those of you watching on Twitch. I'll try to explain it for people who are listening as well to talk about Tesco's question here with a front 6 and a back 4. It's not so much that. So let's say, let me think of the best way to explain it. Let's say Atlanta's attacking bottom to top. The opposition, I'll give you a different color for the opposition. They will be in blue, and they recover the ball around the edge of the attacking third. So ball's on the right side of the field. We will put an X here on the edge of the 18. What's likely positioning with that? Kind of a line of 4. We'll say they pinched in just a little bit. You got their defensive midfielder dropping deep to help. We'll put them in a 4-3-3 just to show what that can look like. And then their forwards have dropped a little bit. So they're defending almost in a 4-1-4-1 that's deep. All right, and the ball is with their left center back. And this will make sense in a second once I finish drawing it right now. So the ball is
This is the first time I've seen the board since I threw it across the studio.
Oh, no, this is my own board. No, it's my own board because that one's probably tainted.
No, it's because I threw it across the studio the night of the San Jose Atlanta game in San Jose in 2018.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
Because I couldn't figure out how San Jose would play.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Okay, so the left center back for the opposition has the ball. It turns over. What happens? Where do Atlanta United's players go? You want – I didn't put their goalkeeper. That's actually an important one because you're going to have to pick somebody to leave free. Let's say he's right here. And a lot of times it'll be the goalkeeper, but not always it'll be the goalkeeper. And why do I say you have to pick somebody to leave free? Because you're only going to leave one free. All right, ball's here. Let's say your number 9 is able to come over and put pressure there. You're not leaving anybody free. That's the key element here. You're not going to leave anybody static because if you do, then there's an outlet. Then they can break your pressure. So for Atlanta, left wing might pinch in here, take that away. Right wing, match up here with their left back. Okay, you're taking away the guys close. One of your central midfielders has to step up here to take their defensive midfielder. Your other 2 have to take these guys. Take them. All right. Your right back has to take their left midfielder, has to step up there immediately. Okay, so now we've got 2 center backs. One of them has to stay with the forward, and he's going to be looking a lot of times to jump in here and intercept if they try to go long. Okay, you want your other center back to stay free to be able to clean anything up. So 2 center backs, your right back's here, your 3 midfielders are here. You've got 1 left, if I can do my math correctly, your left back. Now, this is where it can get tricky because you've got to make a decision on what to do here. Do you leave their right back free, which would be the less risky one, or do you leave this guy free, their right winger, and you put all the pressure on here? Because you're looking for 1v1. So let's say the left back comes all the way up. Okay, he's got to pick that out. So you're pushing everything that way. That's why all the pressure is going to push them that way. You want to make it difficult to hit that ball. The only ball they have is into somebody who is marked. Okay, maybe they do find an escape. All right, they find that ball. He's able to knock it all the way over here. Brilliant left-footed diagonal. That's why you have somebody free, right? That's why Miles Robinson is free. That's why Miles Robinson's going to be really, really important. He cleans anything up. Let's go back to it before I erase and start over. Let's say plays it short to one of their attacking midfielders centrally, and he wins his 1v1, and he turns. Okay, so he's turning and running. Center back has to go to him. Robinson has to pick up the forward. Everybody else has to recover, and it's all about picking up the man closest to you. It is a very man-focused system. And sometimes you see teams that press and they play space. Kind of meaningless if in that scenario that I just gave you, if your left back just sits back and doesn't cover 2 people on that side who are in front. What are they actually doing? They're playing their position, but are they accomplishing anything? No, they're just playing space. Sometimes pressure will be all about creating kind of 2v1 type of situations, creating double teams with it. That's even more risky because then that means there's more people free. If you're able to do what Heinze wants to do, and it is man pressure, you have to win your 1v1s. You have to win those duels consistently. You have to be in positions to do it because if you don't, if that scenario we just showed, let's say your right back isn't able to pick up their left wing, and they pass to him quickly. Well, he's got a lot of space, doesn't he? He's got a lot of room to run. Then you've got people scrambling to try to recover and do it. Couple things we saw this year that Gabriel Heinze probably spotted really quickly when he watched it. The transition from offense to defense for a while was really poor. Really, really poor. It got better. It got better under Stephen Glass. It's going to have to get a whole lot better to play this system, because if it doesn't, you're going to get exposed at times. And I think you'll have some games where you get exposed.
You'll still get exposed anyway. It's just part of it.
It's just part of it. I mean, look at Leeds and Newcastle. Newcastle scored 2. Leeds scored 5, and they really broke them down towards the end. But they gave up 2. I mean, they're going to give up goals. That's going to happen from time to time, because you're going to really press high. You're going to take risks. Until you get it, and if you go back and you look at those Leeds numbers, right? It was 19 goals in 15 games. It was 25 and 25, and then it was its best in the last year, because you got all those rotations. The rotations are so important. Bielsa said this, and again, Gabriel Heinze subscribes to a lot of Bielsa's theories here. Movement, rotation, concentration, and improvisation are the 4 cornerstones of his philosophy as a player. And if he has one core philosophy, it's movement. And that's in order to create opportunities to penetrate, to attack. It's also movement in these situations to recover and to do it properly and in an organized way. The communication cannot be what it was for this team at times. It has to be strong, because when you have breakdowns, which you will, because you're going to get numbers forward and you're going to take chances. When the breakdowns happen, somebody in the back, and that could be Franco Escobar, that could be Brad Gazan, that could be Fernando Meza, it could be Miles Robinson. Somebody's got to be screaming, pick him up, I got him, pick him up, watch my back shoulder. There's got to be communication, because at times this year it felt like there was not, and those transitions were a massive problem.
So let me ask you this.
Okay,
I don't know if someone else has already asked this. Let's say you're pressing across, and you're dealing with a center back who is a Forrest Lasso type, or a goalkeeper who is a Stefan type. Do you leave that guy free, who is not the guy who's strong with the ball at his feet? Or do you pressure him? Do you leave him free and ask him to make a pass, not necessarily under pressure himself, but to make a good pass to someone else who is under pressure? Or do you pressure him at his point and ask him to make the pass possibly to someone who's free, but with pressure bearing down on him? If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. In a perfect world, you do a little bit of both, because you want to make it uncertain what you're going to do. You know who your targets are.
Yeah.
You know, okay, if goalkeeper's bad with his feet, but they're going to try to play him, or center back's bad with his feet, you want it to go there. You're almost, casting a line a little bit here. You might pull the classic Deion Sanders kind of cornerback move, where it's leave enough space to where that ball is on, it goes there, and it immediately collapses. It could be like, okay, let's leave enough space. Yeah, a little bit of a bait job. Leave enough space to where they play it to that person, then they get it, you press, or you leave enough space and then you play the ball in and they jump the line and they jump into the passing lane. You're going to see some of both. I think you're looking for the weak link in the other team's build-up, and you want to exploit it as much as possible. That's where the idea about Heinze and Bielsa and the rest of the style, being we don't change. We do what we do. That's very true in terms of philosophy. Philosophy and tactics are not the same thing. Philosophy and the opposition are not the same thing. You can have the same philosophy. We're going to play in the other team's half. We're going to immediately try to fight and win it back. But you can say, you know what? Their left back is awful with the ball at his feet. We want to funnel everything that way with our pressure. And you're going to work on it in training sessions all week to funnel everything to the left and how to exploit that issue. Not changing your philosophy, but creating a system that works on that day that fits your philosophy. I think sometimes we lump all of that together and we put formations into it too and positions. It's not what it is. Philosophy is what I just said that Bielsa said. It's movement, it's rotation, it's concentration, it's improv, it's the way you want to play. But you can do that in a variety of formations. You can do that with a variety of personnel, and you can make adjustments based off the match or based off the opposition. It's not a plan B in that you're going from, okay, we're going to park the bus to we're going to play a 4-2-4. Those are two different philosophies. It's, all right, we need another player forward. Or, okay, we need to drop to 3 center backs, so our central mid, our number 6, needs to be able to drop into the back line so I don't have to blow a sub to do that because we're under a lot of pressure. So we need to drop a little bit deeper here and have numbers back because they put 2 up top. Stuff like that. That's not philosophy changing. It's tactical changes, and those can change. That's not going to a plan B so much. The philosophy will remain true at all times.
Yeah, it does make me curious about, how you're looking at a guy like, hey, that guy, they're playing their left-sided center back is wrong-footed for this game because he's playing out of position, or they're playing somebody inverted at left back who, he'd usually play right back, and if we pressure him, he's going to have to, you might pressure him to make a key pass with his weaker foot and make him be perfect with his weaker foot.
Yeah, it's adjusting based off what you know about the opposition, and he's going to be thorough in his study of the opposition. He's going to know everything about every team that they're going to play. I don't think he's going to send people to watch their training sessions, but who knows?
That would be amazing.
That would be amazing.
It's only acceptable. Bielsa set the standard for this. You can do it if you get caught, and then you start doing tactical breakdowns at the press conference where you like talk about getting caught, and then you just level it up even more by telling them what they're doing wrong and how they can improve.
Oh yeah. That's the real shade. That's when you really take it to the next level. Shiva asked, would you say our attack will look like LAFC? I mean, just in the sense that it's fluid, yes. I don't think your attack is going to be overly structured. And that's the important element here. LAFC's isn't either, except wanting to find Vela as fast as possible. I don't think it'll be that. I think it'll just be very fluid. You want to win the ball back, and wherever you win the ball back and what shape you're in will kind of dictate what happens. That's why you need players who can play multiple positions. That's why you need players who are flexible. And I think you have a lot of that, which is a huge selling point here. But it'll just look the same in that sense. I mean, attacks in general aren't rigid, and it's hard to say that one team attacks like another because the attack is where you do get that improvisation. The attack is where you let creative players be creative, and you can't structure creativity in that way. So, I mean, the only real thing LAFC does specifically is, I notice a lot of times they'll cover for Vela in the press, and he'll kind of drop off to a wide position. That's why they're better when he's in a wide position and not as a number 9. And then when they win it, it is immediately to pick him out because he's free, because he's not near somebody, because he's not pressing them. That's about it. I mean, beyond that, it's just talent. It's just talented players doing what talented players do. And that will be the same here. I just don't think there'll be as much of a structure of, okay, let's pick out Dom and not have Dom press. I think it will be everybody is pressing, everybody is trying to win the ball back, and you win it back, and then you rely on your talent to get it done.
I'd like to think some of it as well is you're going to see things addressed as far as where guys are, and you want to minimize, kind of the positional things. Like we talking about, an Adam John who kind of drifted wide when, you don't necessarily want him to. And you just having having more than anything for me, I think, is what I saw between the end of the season and the America game is just some damn training time. Yeah. Like you can't replicate it. You can't really substitute training time. I think it really does and did impact that team where you don't have, what do you get? Maybe one day of training a week that Glass had with that team?
For most of it, yeah.
And you can't go hard during that training because you got a game in a day or two, and you can't be out there on dead legs.
Yeah. It's tough. Shiva asked a question. I'll let you take it first. Why do you think Atlanta had a good run in 2019 with Campeones Cup, with the Portland, that run that I've referenced a lot, the Campeones Cup, the Portland, the NYC wins, like 3 wins in a week. They were all really high-quality wins. With understanding Frank DeBoer and executing it, and then could not continue it consistently. Why do you think they couldn't be as good consistently as they were at times in 2019?
Yes, and this is just me, so forgive me if people disagree. That's fine. I think there was a middle ground reached between DeBoer and the players, and it's been cataloged enough, and it still ruffles my feathers that you had players that seemed to decide from the go that they were not interested in what he was selling. That's just never going to work out well. But I think they found a bit of a middle ground there. They were playing more loose and fluid. Guys were in good form. Even some of those games during and even after that stretch, go back and watch the highlights of those games and look how fluid they looked at times. And not just offensively, but when they would transition, they're minimizing opportunities going the other way. I mean, they still looked good going into the playoffs. They rolled New England in the last game of the regular season. They didn't really change a damn thing. I know. I asked Bruce Arena to his face if Atlanta changed anything in the playoff game, and he just looked at me very angrily and said no. Not that Frank needed to. Atlanta was a better team. He didn't have to do anything cute and creative. They were a better team. You change things up for Philadelphia. You beat a good Philly team. I mean, Philly at the end of 2019 was a good team. Remember, they come to Atlanta in that game because they erased a 2-goal deficit to the Red Bulls in Philadelphia and win that game, I think 3-2 or 4-3. And you are 2 wonder strikes from Toronto away from hosting the Cup. It's not like they dropped form late in the season, in my opinion. It wasn't that bad of a drop. Things weren't perfect. I get it, man. But
they had fatigue. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing, at least at that point. So once they finally hit it,
I think it was just I think everybody kind of came to a middle, and everyone settled down. They found form, and I mean, I think you saw what that glimpse is, what it could have been if things had worked. And who knows what 2020 looks like, because you lost Joseph, and Frank was not successful in getting things to roll without Joseph, which on one hand is understandable because he is a very unique weapon and a very unique player, both on the field in terms of what he does for you and also the energy he provides, a little Energizer Bunny out there. And he wasn't able to fix that. Might other managers have had the same problem? Possibly. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. Let's go back to the beginning of August after the loss in Los Angeles last year to LAFC 4-3, which was
a really fun game.
It's a ridiculously bonkers game.
That game I will still go back to as a game that Atlanta had LA on their heels in that game.
Yeah, I mean, you gave up 3 goals in 9 minutes. That was really poor late in the first half. You gave up 4 goals in 12 minutes, you want to be right. So you gave up all 4 goals in the last 15 minutes of the first half. You pulled one back before you went into the break, so it was 4-2. You had that opening goal from Mo Adams. You got an own goal early in the second half, and you had a lot of pressure on them. But you didn't beat the best team in league history in their house. That's not crazy. You, on August 3rd, beat the Galaxy 3-0. You went to Orlando for the semifinal of the Open Cup on August 6th and won 2-0. That was without Joseph. Then you had the win over NYC at home on the 11th. Then you won Campeones Cup 3-2 on the 14th. Then you went to Portland and won on the 18th, and that's still one of the best wins in Atlanta United history for me. That was such a comprehensive performance. Dominated.
That game was just like you held a pillow over Portland until they stopped kicking.
Yep, dominating because you saw some of that pressure added to the possession. The problem was you couldn't really hold that up. You went to Orlando, so that was on a Sunday night. You went to Orlando after coming back. Was that a charter? No, that was not a charter. I don't think.
Jason's trying to remember what brand of peanuts he had on the flight.
Yeah, I think that was a weird one where like we actually had to connect. I don't think the team did, but I think when our tickets were purchased, we had to connect through Seattle. Yeah, that was a crazy one because that was like flying all day.
Airport, at least.
It was, but that was like an all-day travel thing. So even for the team, that's a lot to come back on Monday. You're not training on Monday. You're probably doing more of a region day on Tuesday. Then you're training Wednesday. Then you're traveling Thursday after a training session. You're playing in Orlando Friday night. And you won, but it wasn't a great performance. You got the Open Cup final on the 27th. You won that, and you could see the legs getting heavy. Then you went to Philly on the 31st, and you played a good 45, and then you couldn't run in the second half. I mean, it was like watching a team in quicksand in the second half. Then you had the international break, and you came back and you lost to Columbus. That was where you had two results that it's like, that's not good. The Columbus one was more troubling than the Philly one. The Philly one I completely understood. But after that, you had the win over Cincinnati on the road. You beat San Jose at home, which was a fight, but you did it. You had Joseph get injured in that. You went to Yankee Stadium and got thrown out of the building in the first half, and Tito Villalba had a horrible day. And then, it was a little bit of a fight without Joseph. You went to Montreal and you got a point. I think Joseph was back for the New England game, if I remember right, and you won that on decision day. And
to be fair, you also you came within an arm hair of winning that Montreal game. I was there in the stands yelling at Frenchman the whole time.
Yeah.
Tito actually scores a goal in like the 85th minute. It gets correctly called back.
Right.
Like, that wasn't necessarily a bad performance. It was just your body's breaking down at that point.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing for me is that they played well the second half of last season. I think once Frank made some adjustments because he did. And once he got to know the team and once they got to know what he wanted, it was okay. And I think it would have been good in 2020. I don't think it would have been bad in 2020. I liked what the 3-4-3 was showing. I liked the way he was wanting them to play. I loved that game against Motagua at home, the second leg of the CONCACAF series, where that was the only time we really got to see that group in what it could have been. And then you lose Joseph, and he did not have an answer. And that's the number one thing that ended up hurting Frank was you did multiple different things to try to solve that issue. You didn't, and it didn't feel like you really had a lot of confidence in any of them. And whatever happened in Orlando, along with all of the other things that had built up, change was needed. So you made it. And that's what it was. But you were going to struggle without Joseph no matter what. With Joseph, 2020 would have been a completely different year. Completely different year. Would it have been hard still because of the way everything else happened? Yeah. If you'd had Joseph, it still would have been hard because you did have other injuries. You did have other things happen. But you would have had 10 more goals, 12 more goals, whatever number you want to put on it and be conservative about it. And you would have been in the playoffs, and you would have been a dangerous team. So that's the breaks, though. That's just how it goes. So now you're in a different place, and now I think a lot of people are excited because Gabriel Heinze is closer to what Tata Martino was in the first 2 years of the team than Frank de Boer was. And that's nothing saying one's good, one's bad. That's saying that he's closer to what the original idea was. And what did we hear all last year? I want my old Atlanta United back. Well, this is going to be closer to that, but it's not going to be a facsimile. And there will be things that you will recognize and be excited about, and there will be things that might scare you a little bit about this style of play.
There are things that might frustrate you, too, if he is as anti-pragmatic as Bielsa.
That was something people complained about with Tata, and Tata was fairly pragmatic. He didn't make enough subs. He, didn't change things enough. He didn't rotate enough. Those were constant criticisms.
Yeah, I'm very curious. Like, what does this whole thing look like by the time everything finds its rhythm? Because it's going to take time. And that's another thing I think is I hope people, I want people to have good expectations. I'm glad that everyone's optimistic, but please don't get too up or down based on the first 5 games you see. you can convince me this team comes out and wins 1 or 2 of their first 5 games as they're trying to figure things out. And that doesn't mean it's not going to work. If they win 4 of the first 5 games, that doesn't mean that, they're going to pull together an immortal season. Like one extreme does not rule out anything in the middle. So I would just, if it takes a little bit of time to get clicking, I hope people will don't take it to heart, and don't get too upset. It's going to be okay. You're putting in a new manager. You're kind of putting things into place. It's just going to take a little bit of time. It's okay.
Phoenix with a fair question. Do the kids know what facsimiles are? Did you know what I meant when I said facsimile? I'm throwing you into the kids category, Jarrett.
I appreciate that you're throwing me into the kids category. So I never had to. This makes me whole thing think of about the SATs back in the day. So I don't know, when you did the SATs, Jason, did you have analogies, or did you have the essay?
I did not have the written essay.
Okay, I did, which I love because I like writing. But
so you did the 3-part SAT?
I didn't have to do.
I'm old. I did the 2-part.
I didn't have to. I didn't have to do any analogies or anything.
Okay, yeah, it changed dramatically.
Yeah, there was nothing. There was just you got done with the main part, and instead of doing the analogies, it was like an essay question, and then you got scored. You just had to write a really quick essay. But I
didn't have any of that.
I had a teacher in high school who, it was like an AP language class, and every time we went to that class, it was a 45-minute. It was a skinny class, 45-minute class. Every single class was an essay topic, and you had to spit out an essay in 30 minutes. It was wonderful.
See, I would have rather
taught
had
me how
that.
to write quickly.
The analogy. I mean, you're pretty good with analogies, so I think you would have been fine with it. But
oh my God, I'd have crushed analogies.
Yeah.
Or either I would have crushed them, I would have gotten a perfect score, or I would have gotten a 0.
Yeah, you would have went so obscure.
Oh man, it's 9s or 1s all the way.
So then Phoenix, let me know what the newfangled replacement for facsimiles would be.
Yeah, I get what facsimiles are.
Yeah. I think the idea of a reasonable facsimile, that's just a term that I guess is stuck in my head. So what's the new version? I don't know.
I don't know, like a replica. I mean,
maybe. I'll work on that one. That's a good shout. I'll work on that one. I had a fax machine when I was in college because I was kind of sort of running a pro soccer team from my apartment in Athens, which was insane. But that whole series of things that was going on was insane because this was the last throes of the Atlanta Ruckus. And yeah, I had a fax
which
machine.
Which needs its own 30 for 30. Sure.
Oh, it does. It does. It was crazy. My roommates were a little confused by my fax machine, but it was necessary to do league business and do things, and yeah, it was weird. Anyway, so yeah, I have a very strong affinity with fax machines. It's been a long time since I've used one, thankfully. We haven't even gotten into the Burrow fax that Lionel Messi likes to use, so maybe we'll get into those. Maybe I'll change my methodology to use Burrow faxes. Burn getting us back on track, as he so often does.
Hey, Burn.
I think if you are a more methodical possession team, you need to have great finishing. You will get a decent amount of chances, but rarely great chances because the other team sits back because you're a little more methodical. The other team's chances will be greater since you're playing high. Manchester City's having this problem now. Bayern solves it by having great finishers, and not only one. Atlanta, in particular, without Joseph, just doesn't have clinical finishers. Pitti, was one who could finish, but not a clinical finisher. So
it is my one complaint with Ezequiel Barco. I trust Barco from the spot in terms of the pressure situation, but it does always make me and it's it's not to take away from Ochoa's save the other night, but it's like that first one Lopez heads it back to him. Barco is capable of goals. I will never get over the goal he scored in Orlando in his first year here in 2018 that he scores from just inside the edge of the box, where he takes it one time off the outside of the foot and just puts it through Joe Bendick's soul.
Yes.
But at the same time, Barco's not necessarily consistent in that way with finishing. And it's my only real beef with him. It's more of a creator, less of a finisher kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree. Barco's a little different in that regard. I think I want to see what Gabriel Heinze gets out of Ezequiel Barco, because I don't think Barco goes in January. I think he's here. And I really want to see what Heinze gets out of him. I think it'll be really interesting. I think we could see a side of Barco that we haven't yet, or we've only seen glimpses of, maybe, to be fair. We see the flashes of anger at times. We see the intensity at times. We see his quality on the ball. I think the one thing that'll change for him is the way that this team will play. He'll have more space to operate in. You get Joseph back. You get Marcelino Moreno flying in this group. You get maybe Eric Lopez, maybe Josetu or Heinemann or Remedi, coming through the middle as well. You're going to spread the defense out. They're not going to be able to collapse on him like Club America did and like other teams have. So he's going to have more space to operate in. And I think he's going to be given a lot of confidence from somebody like Gabriel Heinze, who will recognize the talent. And, I mean, he'll absolutely have known of him and know all about him and know what he brings to the table. But I think this is where the extra element of Heinze can come to the fore. He is like Bielsa in that he is a master motivator with his players. He gets what needs to be said. He knows how to get them on the right path. And Barco's somebody who needs to be on that. I think Heinze will make it very clear. This is a huge season for you. You need to show more than you have. I know you have it. We're going to create things in our game to get the best out of you, but I need you to be the Ezequiel Barco that everybody thinks you can be. And if you get Barco playing like he did early last year before he went to the U20 World Cup, if you can get that Barco consistently, and maybe even better with Heinze working with him, added to Joseph, added to Dom, added to everything else, whew, could get really, really fun to watch.
Permission to anger the masses.
Oh boy, what, do I need a sounder for this?
No sounder needed. It's if your idea of adding a finisher is Tito Villalba in 2020, I need you to miss me with that, because
no.
I mean, I will forever love Tito for 2017 and for the end of 2018, but man, like 2020 Tito has turned real quick into Troy Tulowitzki.
Yep.
Where it's the dude had potential for days, but right now, just like Tulo, just cannot stay healthy long enough to put anything together. So I've
seen that talk a little bit, and he scored 3 goals in 24 appearances in all competitions at Libertad, which the Paraguayan League is not MLS. It's not as good. And go ask a Libertad fan about Tito Villalba, and you're going to have to translate some words that you might not have ever seen before.
You're gonna get a Duolingo ain't gonna teach you those.
No, they don't.
And I don't mean it as a shade straight up against Tito or anything. It's
just, it's unfortunate. He hasn't recovered from the injuries he had in 2019. He just hasn't recovered. He's not the same player right now, and he's still young. I hope he gets back there, but man, it's just, he had a horrible miss in the Libertadores on Tuesday. Horrible. I mean, it wouldn't have changed the outcome of anything, but woo.
He did the same thing that he used to drive me nuts with in Atlanta, honestly, which is the dude has a bit of Ricky Wild thing Vaughn in him, in that Tito can put a ball through time and space and break Einstein's theory of relativity with his right leg. but he doesn't necessarily know where it's going to go. And unfortunately, a lot of times, especially when he was bearing down on people, he'd kind of put it right at center mass. Worked in the Toronto game in 2017 when he nutmegged Clint Irwin or Bona, whoever it was, in goal. I think it was Bona. But, from distance, from distance, he can pick off a net from 30 yards out. But it was that kind of like, he's still watching the miss at Libertadores. Is like, that unfortunately looks familiar. Of, man, you can go either. Nope, you can go either side, and instead he went center mass on the defender who was in front of goal.
It was not good. It's been rough because Tito was the first designated player here. He had a lot of special moments here.
Nothing enjoyable about it. Don't get us twisted, please.
Yeah,
there's nothing enjoyable about it.
It's just he's not the same player as he used to be, and I hope he can get back there. I think more than anything, he's just got to stay healthy consistently because even just playing 24 matches and the year is not good, and he's had injuries at Libertad, so we will see. I think the system will open up some other goal scorers as well. I think that'll be an important element. Oh, sorry, I am getting booked for 92.9 for tomorrow afternoon. Sorry, let me send a thumbs up emoji. I'll be hanging out with Willie P at 120 talking about Gabriel.
I used to get those from Rob Tribble, and those were the terrifying ones.
Oh, from Rob? Yeah, that'd definitely be terrifying.
Being locked in a studio with Rob and Harper LaBelle was one of the most terrifying experiences of my life.
I love those guys. Those were always fun. You had to be on your toes.
Yeah. I love Rob. Still do. I spent most of my time being, trapped by either Rob or for those hits, either like Rob or Jeff or Chuckery once or twice, which is just as terrifying, if not more.
I like the I like Phoenix's suggestion on the facsimile replacement, like copy and paste.
So,
maybe that's what we need to use as the new expression. Yes, I did have the fax machine that had like tissue like paper. It was like the crappy roll. Yes, that's true because it was a cheap fax machine too. Okay, again, back on the rails. We'll try. Winter Wind, I think in addition to Heinze, we'll try. We make no guarantees. In addition to Heinze, having all the creative and attacking weapons up top will keep him from getting that lockdown fouling attention, talking about Barco, 100%. It just opens up more space, and he's a player who thrives on having space and exploiting space. That's the thing about this system, and I will go back to the whiteboard real quick. If I don't trip over my cord here as it got connected to my chair. Okay, here we go. So 4-3-3 base is what we're talking about with Senor Heinze. And let's get into the attacking phase. So, okay, your two center backs back, your outside backs high, your wingers can tuck in with your forward. You want a 6 to sit here. You want your two guys here. So you're looking like this, but the key to it is here and here, your wide players on the touchline. Now, they can be Brooks Lennon, George Bello, Barco and Dom coming inside. They could be Dom, Lennon tucking inside, Barco tucking inside, and Bello wide. It doesn't have to be like, okay, our outside backs only overlap and they stay as wide as possible and our wingers come inside. No, you can mix and match. And the game will take you in different places, again, when you recover the ball, because you'll be in positions because you picked up somebody that will carry you into a different position. But you're looking for wide on either side to open up these gaps here, because you want to create space where the opposition sees those wide players and their back line gets pulled apart like this. Either that opens up for Joseph, but we know that's not going to happen. So you're probably going to have it more like this, where if it's Barco coming in, he's got a lane between the outside back and the center back. If it's Dom, if it's Lennon, and we know Brooks Lennon can crash inside and be dangerous going to goal. That's another really important element of Brooks Lennon. I think Lennon could be one of the biggest revelations under Gabriel Heinze. But you're creating these channels and these spaces in between the vertical structure of the opposition. Because, okay, if they do what some teams will do defensively, let's say the holding midfielders get deep and they try to take these two out. Okay, then what? These guys come up and they take the space, the attacking midfielders. It will look very bold with a lot of numbers forward. You want your 6, your holding midfielder, to own the middle of the park. You want your center backs to stay. But if you keep pinning them back, now I've got a line of 4. I've got 2 holding midfielders deep. Let's say you keep this guy back. Let's say they try to double down with their wingers deep, so they're really packing it in. They've got their 1 forward. Okay, why do you need to keep 3 back? You're not going to. Fernando Meza, he's going to go. He's going to come join the party. Okay, now you got 2-on-1. You're good with that. You're happy with that. If it really breaks down and you take chances, you might see the other one go. And it might be one person staying back with their forward. That will happen sometimes. And it will be madness. But it is all about creating those channels. And a guy like Barco, who in the last year hasn't had a whole lot of space to operate in, give him space, we'll see a different Ezequiel Barco, in my opinion. Thoughts, Jared?
No, I don't disagree. And you hope to see a different Ezequiel Barco because for Ezequiel Barco's sake, you need to see a different Ezequiel Barco.
Yeah.
As for his own sake, as his development and for his future. Because, look, I think Barco, as it stands, he's good enough to go to Europe.
100% is.
But that being said, your opportunities are going to go up substantially if you can, tear a new hole into time and space in the city of Atlanta in 2021.
Yeah, and that's going to be a goal because Gabriel Heinze understands the business. This is something he did really well at Vélez. He knows that I got to produce players to be sold. It's just part of the game. I went through it as a kid. I had players at Vélez that we were trying to produce to send on to Europe and make the club money. He's going to know one of his jobs is to get Ezequiel Barco back into that realm of getting $20+ million in a transfer fee. That's going to be one of his goals early on. And I think he'll create situations for that to happen. A lot of it will happen just naturally through the philosophy of the way he sees the game because you're going to give Barco space to operate in and give him the ball in situations when the other team is on its heels because you've just won it back. Barco will thrive in those moments.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, we saw those sorts of moments like you're illustrating in the Club America game when Atlanta's taking chances. And part of that is the fact that you're down, you're down 3-0 on aggregate and you've got to take chances where, you see them kind of create opportunities when, Fernando Meza comes from out of nowhere to join into the attack and carry the ball up. It was the walkabouts that LGP was so infamous for of bringing the ball up into the attack in those situations. You just got to be, and I like the way the one that pops into my mind for the other night that worked out well is I was okay with it, even though it didn't produce a goal, it didn't even produce a shot on goal. But Meza brings the ball up, plays a diagonal into, trying to hit the run of whoever was on the left. So it would have been Lopez on the left, I guess, unless it was Bello overlapping. Mm-hmm. But it didn't connect, and it rolls out for a goal kick. That's fine. It wasn't a turnover up the field. Everybody was able to reset, and it's a shame nothing came from it. But you also didn't get hurt by it.
See, that's a key. I'm glad you said that because that's something that's been an issue. It was a big issue at times this season. Go back to the whiteboard real quick, just from a distance. Okay, you turn the ball over. Let's say you don't pin them as deep. Their holding midfielders are up here, 1v1. They turn you over here, and they break. One coming through here. Their wingers can break in behind your outside backs. You create a 3v3 situation. You can't have turnovers in certain parts of the field. And this has been an issue with Eric Rometty specifically. We've seen it multiple times. You can't have those moments
Yeah, that
because
was
you'll
going to be
get
my
exposed.
reference point.
It is. I mean,
I love Eric Remetti, but
I do too. But he's had problems in possession.
When he gets bad, he unfortunately, Remetti has found, unfortunately, the worst possible times for those things to happen.
Yep. That's another reason why because Remetti's turnovers a lot of times were around midfield in a really bad spot where you're exposed, where you're starting to push up. If his turnovers are going into the final third, okay, you've got time to recover. That's where you got to have a tactical foul. That's where you got to immediately press. Those sorts of things are going to be critical. But you can't have them in this area. You've got to finish plays. And if that means it goes out for a goal kick, if that means it goes out for a throw, if that means it's a shot that goes straight to the goalkeeper and you're able to prevent quick distribution, these things are going to be critical. You've got to, and I remember working with Ricardo Montoya, who I've talked about on the show many times, and Jarrett knows Ricardo from Soccer in the Streets. Ricardo is a big subscriber.
You almost killed me, I think.
Probably multiple times. He's a big subscriber to the Bielsa theories, and I remember a player that we brought into the Silverbacks reserves who was an incredibly talented number 10 attacking midfielder, could play as a second forward, just super talented. Ricardo stressed to him, and it just feels like a whiteboard kind of night, so I'll keep doing it. He stressed to him that when the ball turned over, he didn't ask him to do too much because he knew what this guy's mentality was. This guy was not a player who wanted to defend. But he was the number 10 behind a forward. And what the other team was really good at was their holding midfielder would win the ball in here, in this kind of zone. And he would start the attacks. So he would win the ball in that kind of zone and spray it out wide. So, okay, the whole game plan was to shut that down. The ball turns over. You can't let him play, the number 6. So how do you do that? Your number 10, who's going to be in that zone, immediately step to him. Make it difficult for him to play. He has to play it elsewhere and let somebody else try to beat you. Can't let him start it. So if you're playing Toronto, for example, don't let Michael Bradley play. If you were playing Columbus with Will Trapp under Greg Berhalter, you don't let him play. You make him give it to somebody else and let them try to play. He didn't get it because he's an attacking player, and he's like, "What? I don't." He didn't have the mentality to do it. When the ball would turn over, he would switch off. That's something that won't be okay in the system. The ball turns over, you have to switch on to another gear even more. Like you have to go bright lights instead of just the headlights on. And you have to immediately do the things that you're being instructed to do. So what happened? He played well on the attacking end in the first half in this big game, but that number 6 was consistently getting the ball and passing, so he got pulled at halftime because he didn't do the job. Doesn't matter that he was really good in the attack. He didn't do the job. And when he would lose it, or when somebody else would lose it and that 6 could play, you were dead. And you can't have that. So players have to buy in. That's going to be the number one thing here is Gabriel Heinze has to convince a team that has won things but had a bad year that you have to put this much work in for us to be successful. Joseph Martinez has to play defense, and he will, and he has, and that's not. I'm not going back to that old theory that he's lazy because that's one of the dumbest theories around Atlanta United I've ever heard. But he's going to have to immediately switch on and defend and pick somebody up. Ezequiel Barco is going to have to do that. Jurgen Damm's going to have to do that. Every single player, except whoever's going to be free in the back, has to do that. Fernando Meza might have to step up 20 yards to immediately get to their central midfielder because he's the free man for them and open, and you can't let him get the ball and play and turn. So the ball turns over. It's almost like you have to be even more focused when you lose the ball. Because if you don't, you're not going to play in this team. That's going to be a critical element. Mute button. Still there? Maybe the mute
You
button's
bud.
there. I knew it. Every time I think, I'm like, no, he dropped. He's still there.
No. He's here, and his child woke up and was like saying something, and then literally just dropped back down and passed out. It was hilarious.
She's ready for Gabriel Heinze. She's ready for she's ready for El Gringo.
She's ready for a lot of things in life. Like, again, this is a child who is not necessarily. She's much more verbal than she is physical in her development.
Mm-hmm.
And her favorite thing with the soccer ball is to, when we're in the yard, is to pick it up, set it down as you scream "no hands" at her, and she laughs. Then sets it down in front of you and just kicks it through your leg and screams "Olé" in your face.
Nice.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, that's her thing. She also knows how to take a dive.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. How old is she? Abby asks.
3.5.
3.5. She's going to be a handful on the field, I think.
Her mother was 2.
I've heard this.
Yeah. So, quick story. Her mother tried out for Athena, which was one of the traveling girls teams in the Metro Atlanta area.
Uh-huh.
And as she says it, she tells the story that this girl who was also trying out really had no business playing because she was playing on a surgically repaired ACL, which my wife then re-tore for her with a slide tackle in a tryout.
I mean,
to which Katie still argues to this day, she shouldn't have been out there playing on it. It clearly wasn't ready. She wasn't ready to go 100%. So it's like, I don't know why this was my problem, but I'm the one that got in trouble for it.
I mean, why'd she get in trouble? It's just part of the game.
She didn't. Yeah, she didn't make the team.
Oh, well, that's a joke.
Apparently, it was not. Apparently, it was frowned upon that she she was a sweeper. So she was very much in that destroying mode of if there's no blood, it's not a foul. She still is.
She will like Gabriel Heinze, I think.
Yeah, she's very much no blood, no foul, and she did not take kindly to the fact that this girl was like out there on a surgically repaired ACL, and she got in trouble for tackling her.
Oh no, that's ridiculous.
So if she has any impact on my child's development, it's going to be blood. There will be blood.
That's okay.
It will be amazing.
I mean, it's part of the game, and I hope that those kinds of coaches are not going to be trying to influence people about Gabriel Heinze.
No.
Because
anyway,
it will be physical. It will be intense. There will be a lot demanded of the players. There will be a lot demanded in matches, and there will be a different mentality, a very different mentality than we've seen, and that's exciting. I hope people are ready for it because it's intense, and it will be. There will not be giggling during Atlanta United matches. There will not be this is a fun time. Even when you're scoring goals and it's beautiful in the attack and great chances are created and all that, there will be celebrations of goals. Don't get me wrong. But it will be intense and it will have an edge and it might be a little nasty at times. And that's okay.
Think of Herman Boone in Remember the Titans of Zero Fun, sir.
Zero fun until you win everything you can possibly win, and then it is a whole lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's the fun you're looking for, is trophies, is rings. Yeah. That's what you're looking for. I keep getting reminded, the more I think about Heinze and talking about this, of the conversation that Pep Guardiola and Marcelo Bielsa had. It's a pretty famous story when Guardiola was deciding to go into management as his playing career was ending. He went to, I believe it's outside of Rosario, went to Bielsa's house. Now, Bielsa had left the Argentine national team at this point and was kind of on a little bit of a sabbatical because he had been with Argentina for a little while. He won the gold medal in 2004. That was some redemption for him after a poor 2002 World Cup. He was burned out and left. So this was before he went to Chile, which was another big success for Marcelo Bielsa. But Guardiola finds him after he decides to stop playing. He's playing in Mexico at the time. And goes to his house, goes to like a ranch. And they talked for hours and hours and hours and hours, and Guardiola talked about learning so much, and it really kind of solidified for him that he was going to go into management. Bielsa asked him a question. This is from Pep, remembering it. He said, "Why do you," Bielsa talking to Pep, who knows of all the garbage in football, the dishonesty of people, why do you want to return to that environment and manage? Do you like blood so much? And Guardiola replied, "I need the blood." I think Gabriel Heinze probably would too. You know, like I think he would say similar things.
Well, I mean, it takes a certain kind, and more power to him for it.
To do it in this way, it does. I think.
Well, that's what I mean. Like to do it in general, no, you can be like a Harry Redknapp, God forbid. You know, you can be Saturday mornings on the horizon, y'all.
Big Sam, yes.
Oh man, you do not have the facilities for that big man.
I don't want to see that
at all. But you can be those guys. But I mean, to do it like this, I think you cannot go into this half-assed.
Mm-mm. And I thought it was really interesting. Like when I started researching Heinze and digging into his story, like he retired in 2014 as a player, and when Bielsa was at Marseille or going to Marseille, which Bielsa at Marseille, I'm trying to remember the timeline off the top of my head. He resigned in 2015 at Marseille. He was there 2014-15. So yeah, it would have been like right after Heinze retired. Bielsa offered him the opportunity, and this is actually interesting based off a couple things that are being reported right now. Bielsa offered him the opportunity to come join his staff at Marseille, which was a club that Heinze had played for. And Heinze turned him down. He had just retired. He turned him down. He wasn't ready to make a career decision at that point, which is understandable. He had just retired.
Yeah, he's not the first.
So Cesar Luis Menotti, who is a legend, won the 1978 World Cup with Argentina as a manager, he is seen as the positive manager of the two main schools of Argentine soccer thought. Bielsa's like a third whole wing separate.
I like how this devolves into Jedi versus Sith real quick.
Basically, yeah, because Menotti's the good guy who is all about our soccer and playing it the right way and being very attacking and creative. And
good, Yoda.
Carlos Bilardo, who won the 1986 World Cup and had the close relationship with Maradona. Bilardo was, I don't care how it looks, I want to win. I don't care what you think about style, I want to win. It's a lot more fun to win. It's no fun to lose. So,
accurate.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and both have their place. But Menotti, when Bielsa, or after Heinze turned down Bielsa, and Heinze didn't really know what he wanted to do, Menotti said, I believe this was in a conversation with him directly, and it's quoted in a great read from 2017. I shared some articles from Golazo Argentino earlier. And it's definitely worth a read, especially some of the early stuff when he was at Argentinos, when Heinze was there. But this is a quote in the article from Menotti. He said, "Pardon me, Senor Heinze, but you're a chicken. You can't just retire and live an easy life. You have an obligation to give something back to football, and in particular to that of Argentina." Well, then Heinze knew that the writing was on the wall, and he had to go serve his calling. And
you've been called out. You have to at that point.
Yeah. I mean, you've been called a chicken by one of the legends of the game. You can't allow that to be the case. So
if you walk away, I mean, Jesus.
Then you go into management, and then he starts. He goes through the courses. He starts at Godoy Cruz. It takes some time, but he goes through all of the work to become the manager that he is. He has success at Argentinos. He has success at Lanús, or at Vélez. But here's the interesting thing. So two legends of the game have recently retired in Argentina, and there are reports that Heinze has reached out to both of them about joining his staff, just like Bielsa did to him at that time. Fernando Gago and Javier Mascherano. And both have been linked to joining Gabriel Heinze's staff in Atlanta. I thought that was interesting that like that happened to him when he retired. He's like, I'm not ready. Yeah, I don't want to do that yet. And he gets called out, so he goes into management. And now, what does he do to two of his friends? One guy, both guys that he played for with the national team. One that he actually managed at Vélez and Gago. He immediately turns to them and says, "I want you to join my staff." And we'll see what happens.
What happened when Messi retires and like people and like Bielsa and Tata come after him and be like, "Hey, you gotta go manage, man."
It's a weird one. I mean, I don't know if Messi's that personality. He could be. He could be. I mean, he seems like an obsessive about the game. And that's what all these kinds of guys are. You know, I mean, Bielsa's watched more matches than probably anybody who's ever lived.
Which
tape
is
upon tape
just
upon tape.
terrifying.
It's crazy. I mean, he called Leeds back a day after they had called him, and he'd already watched 7 games. It's insane. I think when he was in Mexico, people said he would watch 2 games at the same time and analyze them. I mean, I don't know how you do that, but he's at another level.
Well, I mean, it sounds about right, though, for that school, because you think about when Tata came to Atlanta, it was talked about that Tata, like, showed up with, like, binders.
Yeah.
And he'd already done all the research for the league, for the teams, for the style, for what he wanted. Guys are obsessives. Oh God, I just realized who I want to become a manager now as part of as part of like a dark art school. Oh God, someone please give Luis Suarez his coaching certifications after he retires.
Good. Yeah, Luis Suarez could be really, really good.
Luis Suarez could be a really good manager.
Yeah.
Could be just a horrible heel, and I'm here for it.
I love it. So we're going to wrap up here shortly. Abby is leaving and wanted to know schedule tomorrow. Power Hour at 10 o'clock, and then I'm on at 92.9 at 1:20 for a quick hit. But Power Hour at 10 o'clock. And I'm sure we'll be talking about this, but we'll also be getting ready for all the games tomorrow and over the weekend. CONCACAF Champions League tomorrow night. I wanted to share this one, too. I mean, I think Mike called it a dossier that I put together on Heinze. Like, I just started researching when the rumors started and wanted to make sure I had a lot of background. One of the stories that jumped out to me was during his time at Argentinos, which is a proud club. I mean, that's where Maradona started. They've won big things before, but they were in the 2nd division. Once he secured promotion, they had a press conference, and Heinze brought a whole bunch of people into the room with him, people that the reporters didn't know who they were. It was not just like his technical staff and like the assistant coaches and all that. He brought the medical team. He brought the kitmen. He brought the members of security. He brought the club psychologist. He brought everybody who had been part of it up there. They had a club psychologist. Atlanta United might need a club psychologist.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing. It's a great thing.
Hey, that saved John Smoltz's career.
Absolutely did. So. But he brought them out, and he said to the reporters, he said, this is just as much their day. He said, I may have barked the commands, but they all helped steer the ship. He gets all of it. And that's another Bielsa kind of trait. Because, what have we always heard about Bielsa? Like, he will go in and he'll know before he got to Leeds, he knew, I think he had blueprints of their training facility at that point. He already knew like what it looked like. And he said, this needs to change. This needs to change. I need this. I need that. And it's not like just ridiculous stuff. Like it's very practical.
It's not like a show writer. It's right. Legitimate stuff.
It's not, take the brown M&Ms out of the bowl. It is like, this is the way he sees it. And he wants to be able to work in that environment. And he's trying to make it as good and comfortable and productive for anybody as it can be. So he does those sorts of things. He always, I think, there was a story about Bielsa. I think he won something or had something in his contract where he got a car or something, and he ended up doing a holiday raffle for all of the staff, and somebody won the car that Bielsa had gotten for something. Like he does Bielsa asked for a big salary, but he ends up giving a lot of it to the people around him. He wants to be able to take care of all those people the way he sees fit, and he does. Those sorts of things, we haven't had anybody like that in American soccer, really. Like, clubs aren't looked at as institutions. They're looked at as franchises and businesses. Gabriel Heinze is going to give something to the club for however long he's here. I mean, it might be 2 years. He's going to give the club some of that soul that longtime clubs have, and it's going to have a different feel to it because he will fight for the people around him, and he will, I think, give them all the respect in the world and elevate them in importance. And that's those jobs are very, very important to a club to be successful, and I think Heinze gets it. So, like, that little story to Argentinos, I think that shows a lot of his character. Like, he's a feisty guy, and he'll fight with people, and he'll yell and argue with people, but if you're with him, he will show you the utmost of respect.
I wonder if we start getting that more on the American side where
I hope so.
Players get, and where players get the push, for lack of a better word, of, hey, you're done playing, and that's cool. What's your next step to give back? Like, or is it going to be coaching? What are you going to do to push on to the next generation?
That's
we do it to an extent, but
it doesn't happen in an organized way. You're right.
No, it's not. So I'm curious, like, if we go down that route, and we do it in other sports. I mean, you see guys, but it's very disorganized in other sports where you've got guys though like a Lewis Riddick, who is up to potentially be a GM in football. Some guys go straight into coaching. Some guys take some time off, and it's kind of discombobulated. Some go into the broadcast booth, and for some guys, I mean, it works really well. For instance, you see the aside from having to listen to Joe Buck make my ears bleed during the NLCS this year, the end of the NLDS it was AJ Przinsky, Adam Wainwright. I forget who else was in that booth. It was brilliant. It was a great booth, and it was great insight that was, I don't want to say dumbed down because I don't mean it in a bad way, but it was great insight that was translated really well. And even that is a way of giving back. If you're, whether you're going to go to coaching, whatever you're going to do, it is disorganized. And do we go down a more organized route with that, where you're reaching out to former players and saying, "Hey, how are you going to give back? What are you going to do so that the next generation has an easier path than you had?" Especially you guys who are getting done with MLS right now. If you're getting done with MLS right now, the Parkhurst guys' ages, the guys who are aged like Larinowitz, they went through the dark ages of MLS. And that's not to say that, they should feel beating their chest about, we survived this and you guys have it easy. It's not about that. To me, it is the idea of, I'm curious what they do with the next step in their career. I understand wanting to take a little time off and have a family, especially some of these guys, just starting families. I am curious, though, how they proceed in terms of getting back, because I think it doesn't have to be, you don't have to go coach and spend the next part of your life coaching for 25 years. But I think you do owe something to the sport and to wherever you're at, so that and what you have done on the field absolutely contributes to this. That should not be discounted, but to make it easier for the next generation, especially guys in MLS who are going to be coming up, so that they don't have to go through the crap you did, which I think some of them did, where you see them negotiating CBAs and making things better for people going forward. How does that continue off the field after your career?
Yeah, D. Graham points out Tyler Adams starting the UPSL team. Like, that's a really cool thing with giving back. And there is an obligation. And, maybe it's a little bit different here because of just the mentality of the game and especially the youth game, and how a lot of times, maybe you don't feel that obligation because your parents were able to pay thousands of dollars for you to play and to get noticed and to get seen. Maybe you have a different feeling about things because of that. I think the guys who had to grind, the guys who didn't have anything handed to them, are the ones who often do give back. And, Michael Parkhurst is a prime example. Parky just retired. He constantly had to fight because he was not a prototypical American center back. I think he would have been a center back that a lot of managers in other countries would have loved because of his ability on the ball, but he wasn't a prototype here, and he had to fight for his place every single time. And he's adjusting to not being a player, and it's been a year, okay? But he's also getting involved in building mini pitches in Rhode Island, where he spent time with the New England Revolution, and he's part of a fundraising effort to build a mini pitch with an organization called Project Goal. So, he's giving back already in a way as he's kind of transitioning to that life, not as a player. Like, that's awesome. And he gets it. And I think there's plenty of others who do. I hope that we continue to have more because the game benefits from those types of people being involved in it. And that's, I think, what Minotti was getting at with Heinze, was that the game's given you everything. It's your turn to give back now. And it's not just, for you to be involved. It's for the good of the game in this country. If you've represented the national team, I think you have a little bit different feel like that. You feel that obligation a little bit more. So, that's something that he will share. That's something that he will, I think, try to instill in, whether it's academy kids coming through, to second team players to first team players, that obligation to give back to the game in whatever way, makes sense for that person. I think that's something that will be part of his ethos here.
I certainly hope so. I hope it continues to grow. And it doesn't have to be just here in Atlanta, just so we're clear. It doesn't have to be where you played. It could be your hometown. It could be a place like Rhode Island for Parkey or any place like that. And if you want to go into coaching, I hope Brad Friedel doesn't discourage you in what happened in New England.
Yeah, he just wasn't the right fit. He did an interview earlier this year where I don't think he really learned from that experience very well. And I hope that he finds his fit in the game because he's had a career not like many others in America, and I hope he can find a way to give back and whatever that is for him. I'm going to end with this. I want to ask you, what is the most exciting thing about Gabriel Heinze coming for you, and what is the biggest question you have about Gabriel Heinze in Atlanta?
I think the most exciting thing for me is the fact that people are super excited. Look, I think I've made it clear, and if not, here it is. Like, I don't think Frank was wrong that Atlanta's fan base was spoiled, and that's not a bad thing. Tata spoiled this fan base because they managed to do amazing things in 2 years' time, and that's okay. But I don't think he was wrong that the fan base was spoiled, and it's, man, it's going to be, it's good that everybody is really excited about all of this going forward. And I am very excited to see, what kind of energy he brings into it. And then, like we've talked about, I'm excited about any lasting effects he can have because, you don't build culture overnight, and you don't build these legacies of these clubs that we have grown up following outside of MLS. Like, some of these clubs are over 100 years old. They don't just develop overnight with culture. It doesn't happen that way. So anything he can contribute on that front, I'm excited about. Concern, I mean, hey, early results for me. I hope people, if, and I'm not saying it will happen, I certainly don't want it to happen. If the first, month of results aren't there necessarily, I hope people don't get down on him and don't start trying to burn things down and freaking out. Got to be patient.
I think for me, the question is the defensive structure and how risky it is. I worry about that. That was what the major question for Tata for really most of his 2 years was being good enough defensively to get it done, and he had to make some big sacrifices in the postseason, and he made the right calls. But can you be more responsible defensively but still maintain the philosophy that you want? So can you find that balance? Because I think it'll be a little bit harder to play as breakneck of a pace consistently in MLS than it was in Argentina. The thing I'm most excited about is continuing the progression of the club. Because for me, I think a lot of people looked at Frank's time as a step back or a misstep or whatever different term you want to throw in there. I think the idea was sound because you brought in a steady hand in Tata Martino, a veteran hand who wasn't going to be shocked by anything to get things off the ground. He won championship in year 2. He moves on. You bring on Frank de Boer to, I think in a lot of ways, try to bring some of that Ajax mentality, that full club mentality into the mix. And he did that in ways. You saw Miles Robinson's development, who was not really part of Tata Martino's teams. Miles's development is a huge feather in Frank de Boer's cap. You saw George Bello be thought of as a first-team player day one in Herediano. I think bringing through the youth, bringing through that idea of progressing players through the system, kind of strengthening those links. Because, Atlanta United 2 started in 2018. It wasn't something that Tata really used a whole lot. Frank did. And I think, the players we mentioned, George Campbell's development, I'd like to think that Frank had at least a hand in that, was monitoring it, enough to sign him to a first-team deal coming into the year. I think that got a sign-off from him. But also, Mikey Ambrose. And the reason I mentioned Mikey is Mikey was playing with the twos consistently to be ready just in case, and that just in case was in the Eastern Conference semifinal. And he stepped up and gave Frank an option that he didn't have without it, and that was a big part in winning that game. So Frank took it to the next level of building the club out a little bit further in terms of connecting the first team. Heinze does both in different ways, and he takes you to a little bit further step with this idea that has been there from day one about controlling games and being on the front foot and being fast and fluid. That didn't go away. Frank didn't accomplish it as much as he needed to. Now you've got somebody who specializes in that, but also specializes in developing young talent, also specializes in preparing young talent for the next level, the next step for them, if it's Europe, if it's a bigger club, what have you. So you're getting somebody who can do some of the things that Tata Martino did and some of the things that Frank de Boer did, and you're getting it in a young, exciting personality. So it's progression, and it's the next chapter of the book for Atlanta United, and I'm excited to see where this club is at the end of Gabriel Heinze's time, because while 2020 ended up not being a good year for the team, I don't think it derails anything with the progression of the club, and I think by the end of Gabriel Heinze's time, the philosophy will be a little bit more refined, and I think you'll see even more links between the academy, the second team, and the first team, and producing more players. And that's going to be an exciting element. More homegrowns, more local guys who are playing not just there because they're local guys, who are playing like a George Bello, like a Jackson Conway, playing like stars. It's an exciting thing. So it's going to be an exciting time while he's here. We're going to have a lot to talk about in games. We're going to have a lot of moments in games to talk about. We're going to have a lot of reactions to talk about. We're going to have probably a lot of press conferences after games to talk about. We're going to have a lot to talk about. So we're excited.
That's true.
We're very excited. Go ahead.
Yeah, shout out to Scott Donnelly and Stephen Glass and to Tony Annan for all of their hands in, this 3-year now development with guys on the second team. Because I know I don't have to tell you all the results haven't been there, but what they did, getting guys like Miles Robinson, like George Campbell, like Jackson Conway, like Lawrence Wyke, to getting them on the field, challenging them, and getting them in a position is the stuff that is, man. A lot of that stuff is a thankless job because the results aren't going to be there, and to the general public, it looks like a thankless job. I don't know if Glassey's going to coach up the second team next year. I hope he does.
I think that's the plan.
That's awesome because we saw guys jump under him, and I want to see that continue to happen. So that's also for me a part of it. And I know you mentioned those guys, and Look, I mean, the results, it is cliche to say the results will come, but that just feels like such a thankless job a lot of times because the results aren't always going to be there. And you're going to have to go out there and develop guys. And you're going to get situations like when Glass was bantered about for one of the Dundee gear. I think it was Dundee FC jobs. And
Dundee United.
His name. Or Dundee United, thank you. They're right across the street from each other. It's fine.
Yeah.
No, literally, they're like right across the street from each other. You can like throw a rock from one stadium to the other. It's amazing. But the fact that his name was mentioned about it, and people just mentioned his record of, oh man, he's done terrible for that team. I mean, it is a thankless job on that front, but it's a necessary job, and it's a damn vital job in Major League Soccer where you don't have a endless salary where you can go out and just spend whatever you want.
Yeah, you're measured on a different scale, and you should be measured by the players you produce and moments like the goal against Club America. That's what you're measured by for people who really know, because to have a homegrown Champions League goal, assist and goal, it's a big deal. And that's work that started with Tony Annan. That's work that continued with Jackson Conway debuting under Scott Donnelly with the twos, and it's work that Stephen Glass continued with both of them in 2019 and in 2020. So those things are vital, and all of those people being in the places that they are help make Gabriel Heinze's job that much easier. You have a club culture. You have things in place that he doesn't have to create that he would in a lot of MLS clubs. Those things are in place. He's going to be able to reinforce it and add to it. And that's the key, is what does he leave here? His responsibility coming here will be to make the club better and leave it in a better place when he leaves. That's what is going to be his goal. And I'm excited to see what that looks like at the end of it. So we're going to have a lot of time to talk about all this until Atlanta United gets back on the field. So don't you worry. We'll dig deeper into whiteboard stuff. We'll dig into other aspects of the way Vélez and Argentinos Juniors played. We'll have plenty to jump into. Don't worry about it. So we'll be back for Power Hour in the morning. Then I'll be on 92.9 at 1:20. You probably want to maybe make appointment viewing on Sunday for Leeds and Manchester United, because it'll be a great game anyway, because it's a rivalry that we haven't seen in a league match in 16 years. These two clubs have always hated each other. But you might want to start watching. What's that?
Warms my heart. Yeah. I love to see good hatred.
No, it's good hatred. You might want to start watching Leeds for a little while closely at some of the intricacies and some of the subtleties of Marcelo Bielsa's Leeds team, because while it's not a direct template, there will be things that you will notice that are similar from that to Atlanta United under Gabriel Heinze. So Sunday, I recommend that. We'll be back on Monday. We'll have a busy week next week, a more normal week. Monday morning will not be normal because we'll be on an hour earlier. We'll be 8 to 10. Gabriel Heinze's press conference will be aired live by 92.9. You can listen to it on the radio.com app as well. We will step away for that, and then Mike and I will have a stoppage time to complete the 10 o'clock hour on facebook.com/929thegame. So Monday will be busy. We'll have a lot to talk about. Thanks for hanging out and listening to all of it. A bunch of you guys have listened to all of this stuff today, and y'all are crazy and awesome, and we really, really appreciate it. Jarrett, thanks for taking some time out. It's been good to have you as a more regular presence here lately.
Yeah, it's weird.
It is weird. It's good, though.
It's good. It's a good weird.
It's a good weird. I mean, it's a good weird like Te'ise having Las Locuras de Scott Brown right now, running the random highlight of Scott Brown's greatest moments.
Man. Oh, God. That's this weekend.
Yep. Just wanted to
There's an entire trove of memes going on right now about begging Scott Brown not to play in this game.
They're going to win the Scottish Cup, and
if they don't.
If they don't, I'm not talking to you.
I'll talk. I'll just be sad.
Yeah, I don't think you'll be sad.
Ismaila just like Celtic fans have already decided, man, Ismaila Soro is a 6 who's somehow going to lead them back against Rangers and win to 10 in a row. They're half joking with themselves because it's such a dark time in the east end of Glasgow, but they have a young 6 who's really fun, so they're happy.
Oh, hopefully they'll stay happy, at least for a little while. Hopefully they win the Scottish Cup and have some happiness. Otherwise, it's going to be sad Jarrett Smith on soccer over there on Monday. Angry Jarrett Smith on soccer over there on Monday, which is also
most
possible.
likely just going to be sad. I'm to the point I don't get as angry as I used to about really any sporting event. I think it's because the Falcons, the Braves, and the Hawks have beaten me down so aggressively over the years.
Well, the aggressiveness of Gabriel Heinze might bring that back out of you, hopefully.
Yeah. And again, there's nothing about Atlanta United that has ever really made me sad. Like one bad year after a title in second year, 3 trophies in 2 years. Nah, one bad year is not going to ruin not going to put me in a bad mood, honestly.
No. And there's going to be an intensity that I don't think we've seen in Atlanta sports with Gabriel Heinze. I'm excited about it. Serious.
Gabriel Heinze is going to throw out the first pitch in a Braves game and drop kick the umpire.
Yes.
Because Ronald Acuna told him to.
He'd be down for that. He would be down for that. I'm excited about it. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll continue talking about it tomorrow. Y'all have a good rest of the evening. Mucho plata, y'all.
Mucho plata, y'all.